the properties on Quaker might not be disturbed by that.
We're happy to answer any other questions from the board.
I have a question. It's probably for Mr. Carullo. Could you please explain one more time why this is a unified, why it's allowed to be a unified development, just so I understand?
So the applicant is asking for dimensional relief to have a chain link fence to the side and front of the building. That's a standard in the zoning code. And under the new Rhode Island general law, at any stage, master plan preliminary, except final, it's master plan preliminary, if the plan is changing or has changed, the applicant has the ability, rather than go from the planning board back to the zoning board to the planning board, just to ask for that relief as a unified plan review before the board.
I was actually going to go after what Mr. Menard was saying with the occupancy sensors. Just in general, lighting, I know you did the light plan over here. Is it your intention that those are going to be on timers as well, or based on occupancy sensors, and if there's like movement so that the lights can dim, just so then when the plant's not in operation, you don't have it full light, or I guess if you need full light, if that's the situation too.
For the one in the rear?
No,
for
the
out front.
For the entirety of the front.
I guess I would leave that to the plan, is the lighting plan. I don't really know exactly what,
Sure.
but I know it's code.
Yeah.
I would think.
No, I'm just more concerned if it's, if you guys aren't operating and it's middle of the night, you clearly don't need pedestrian lighting to be at full 100% lit. So they could potentially either be turned off or go dim.
Or be dimmed, yeah.
Yep. So that's just one of my questions is if the buildings aren't occupied, could they be dimmed down to an appropriate level so it's not, giving extra light when it's not needed?
Yeah, so we have, what was modeled there, there's 3 wall patch lights and there are 8 stanchions. Yeah, under today's, new generation of LED lighting, I think that's pretty easy to accomplish.
Okay.
I know the municipalities are doing a lot of it now, that
Yep.
your lights are dimmable at night. And we've discussed this so many times at this board, the new generation of lighting is
Yep.
a lot different. So yeah, I think that's
In the building I have,
certainly-
they actually have dim lighting, and as you walk into an area, it gets bright,
It gets
and then
bright.
it dims again as you leave.
Big Brother, it's weird, isn't it? I think people's watching. But yes, we certainly will agree to that as a stipulation that
Okay.
we'll work with the town in terms of our electrical engineer, putting some dimming features in there. So we're not open or at full capacity at 2 a.m. We don't have full 100% lighting.
But absolutely, again, if it does require the.
For safety,
To come up.
that will, of
Just
course,
looking,
Yeah.
the Fountain
Right.
Complex has them, so that means anybody can.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else?
No, I was just concerned about, where you see that jog in the fence on the southerly side, just south of the retention pond.
yep.
If, I know that area is going to be wooded, but I do get a little concerned with, as everyone else has said, visibility into it. It looks like you have aluminum siding on the remainder of the building.
Yes.
So it's just, just to safeguard from that a little bit more.
Can we offer a row of trees here?
I think that would be helpful.
Well, I was gonna go down the same path,
Yeah.
except for the people on Central Street looking straight in at the south side of the building, especially in winter. I mean, and those mature trees, you're gonna see right through them. There isn't growth that, most of the growth is above the height of the building. So one of my questions, why not have at least the architectural block for the entire south side? That would be more appealing than, right, the aluminum siding. Or vegetation, but
Right, something along.
something along, so it takes the jog and then continue it to that corner. That would seem to alleviate things from a visual standpoint. Anybody coming this way, from that way, most of all the people across the street.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's an easy give. I know when preparation meetings this week with the owner, he was adamant that this building is gonna look nice. It's gonna look, you see their existing facility there, that's what I expect that this is going to continue on. If you would like a continuation of those, I think that's a reasonable compromise.
Would EFS be an option?
I don't know if the architect wanted to,
From a standpoint.
some people don't love, yeah, I see, he's just shaking his head, some people.
You're talking to an architectural designer,
I
so.
know, and
For historic values.
yeah, some people appreciate it, some people will say so.
Block is much easier to maintain than EFS.
I do agree with that, yes.
Yeah, it looks good.
What, Mr. Sully, what is the opening? So you see the vegetation on Central Street. And you
Yes,
have, what has a representation of what would be 3 plantings, then there's an opening, and then the continuation of the balance. Is that a walkway, or what is the purpose of that opening?
that opening is primarily a corridor for our curb cuts. Yeah. For our utilities, that's right. Let me just get to the right plan. Yeah, gas, electric, sewer, that's what that is just all of that's our utility corridor coming through, which is why we're a little apprehensive about putting root-bearing trees above them.
They're usually 4 to 6 feet below grade, so I don't see root bearing, unless you're putting bamboo trees or some type of a willow that's gonna go that deep.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, our water line will be about 4 feet below grade. Sewer may be a little bit higher just because it's a force main. Again, if they are to look through to that building, what they'll see is that architectural side. But the basis of design as to why we didn't include trees there was because primarily that's our utility corridor.
So, apologize if this was covered in the master plan, but I don't recall. Is the building being built to support rooftop solar?
It is not. It is.
I believe it is.
Did they
Yeah,
change that?
We have the option, it's gonna be able to hold.
Okay. Okay.
That's a better answer.
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't believe rooftop solar is.
We're gonna
It's
go.
not part of the project right now, but it is. It is
Not the
in
solar itself, just the built to support.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. So it sounds like our foundation and steel will bear
That's what you want.
for the solar, but that is not part of this proposal.
Be solar ready.
So, the other question I have is regarding noise reduction. So, and I don't know, obviously what's going on in this facility is complementary, is that the right way to put it, to what's going on in the others? What is the type of, there's already been conversations around the noise produced by the current facility. How will this add or not to the noise level?
So there's a few things, that the operations that are in the existing facility are not, most of those are not going. We're only gonna do the sorting and the size reduction of certain materials to get a sample that we will bring to the other facility to further process. And then we just wait for the results of that sample and we ship that right out from the warehouse.
Well, what does that sort of entail in terms of equipment and?
Shredders, size reduction machine, the conveyors and shredders. But everything will be internal. There's some of the noise that probably exists at the existing building is external
From the vacuum?
dust collection.
The vacuum?
Yeah, vacuums, air handlers and things like that, which there won't be none outside on this building.
Okay.
And not to mention too, that the activities inside this building, I think good 2/3 of that building is almost below grade.
It is. It is. The way we built
So
this
it's-
into the grade, that's a good, when you see the side of this building, when you can see how Dan stepped it routinely through it, because of it being built into the grade.
Oh, I see.
Coming from the west to the east, you can see how sharply that topography changes about 22 feet in grade. And so we're constantly stepping that building and stepping it. And then even the front of it at one point was larger and overshadowed that. We've shrunk that down, put the flat roof on there. What I will say about noise is, we will comport to the town's noise ordinance in terms of hours per day and decibel levels. You may hear some of our operations, which I don't think is out of the ordinary. And to my knowledge, I understand that there has been some conversation about noise, but I know of no noise complaints that have ever been logged against the business in terms of noise. I can certainly understand residents' concerns, but in terms of anecdotal versus real data, I don't know of any noise complaints.
Well, we're really telling us that doesn't exist yet, but I would say as part of the plan that there needs to be sound measurement.
Absolutely, it's an enforceable,
Yes.
Right, it's a tangible code item that's enforceable, and we
And
certainly
especially if you're operating in the summer and you get the loading docks,
opening.
bay doors open.
Yeah, we can't tell you we're gonna be completely silent here,
Well, no.
it's not.
Just within the.
But we've got to comport and be under the threshold of the decibels, and we have to be within the hours of, that's working hours allowed in town.
Go ahead, Dr.
Could you please explain a little bit more about what the terms were for the permit to alter the freshwater wetlands, like what you're doing to meet the requirements?
Yeah, so when we filed this application, we had originally had a pre-application with the DEM, and we could have kept this to a preliminary determination that would have sent back to us an insignificant alteration. But because of the connector, because we bifurcated specifically those wetland buffers and that intermittent stream, that's why the supervisors at DEM said that you need to comply with the standards of an application to alter, because you are altering freshwater wetlands temporarily, which is why I believe they gave us the permit, because we are going to let everything go back to its natural stage. But that little connector is the reason it took us some time to get through DEM and a higher level of review. But it was important to us because of these two buildings working together.
I think she's asking more about your filtration systems and how you're going to clean the surface water.
Yeah,
Including the impermeable surface that
Yeah.
you're doing?
So let's go through some of the drainage. It's multifaceted. I'd love to get into the weeds. So there's a water quality trench, right? That's just going to take the water off the north side of that gable. It's going to perk it into the ground and try to clean it as best as we can. We wish we had a deeper water table and we were able to infiltrate more. But it will detain it enough. So we'll have treatment, we'll have attenuation, and we'll even have a little bit of volume reduction for that old gable side.
How do you treat it, Jim?
Well, you treat it, there's sand that is
Sand.
underneath it. There are different planting materials that are inside of it, and all of that will help us with the pollutant loading. It then goes into a bioretention filtered basin, so that's a little bit different. Instead of just having the sand media clean it, we'll then route it through a bioretention area, which will have elements of different greeneries that will clean the water. That basin also has a volume with it, so it'll further detain. We also have the trench drain that's coming from the forklift area that's going to go into that bioretention area. And then everything ultimately will go into UIC1, which will further, again, it'll clean it with the sand underneath it, it'll attenuate it by holding it back, and it'll reduce volumes by infiltrating. So that's the whole north side of the gable.
So would you say you have 3 treatment mechanisms there?
You do, that's tertiary in terms of water quality, bioretention, and then UIC. And we weren't trying to be cute here in terms of all the appurtenances, it's just the difficulty of the site because of the high water table. Same thing for the south side of the building. That gable will go into another water quality trench that'll have sand below it. We'll have a lined and a sub-drain bioretention basin. It's lined so that we don't have any sort of impact or commingling of the clean groundwater with some of our dirtier water. And it'll be sub-drained so that we can lower the water table to take pressure off that liner. And that too will go into ultimately a proprietary system, which is a Storm Scepter STC 900. So that is an inline water quality appurtenance that'll take the catch basins before any water gets onto Central Street. We'll put them through that Storm Scepter and route it through UIC1. So, so you've got the north side of the building going through the 3 treatments. You have the south side of the building doing the same. You have the water from the parking lot going through proprietary, and then we just have culverts for the driveway crossings and one last water quality trench. And so I believe because of all of the drainage that went into this, we've had many meetings with DEM asking them for what they would support, and so we could get this approval, which is not easy, as you know, Dr. Roberts. We don't often file for formal wetland applications because this is difficult to achieve. In this case, it was so important for us to have that interconnectivity, and with some of the design, the DEM, to our happiness, signed off on that.
Thanks so much for all that. And then just one last related thing. Can you just explain a little bit about the portions of the surface that are semi-permeable?
Yeah, so we have some areas that are going to be porous pavement, and if I can just get to them. So when we design porous pavement, you can see that there's areas we don't always want to have. In my experience, when you have areas like parking lots that are porous in nature, with the salt and the sand and the vacuuming and the maintenance, it becomes very difficult long-term to say that it's going to work. But there are remote areas, especially in that pedestrian walkway, that we can put porous pavement and not worry about vehicular traffic. There are areas in between the parking lot and outside the truck turning areas that we could put some porous pavement. We haven't taken credit in our drainage model for it. It's in addition to, but we know it's going to provide water quality through the sand and stone underneath it. We know it's going to attenuate peak runoffs just by the time it's going to take to percolate through it. And we know it's going to reduce the volume of water leaving the site just by its very nature of infiltration. So we show it there. We want you to know it's one extra item. We don't show it in our drainage treatment train because we didn't take credit for it in our model.
Thank you.
I have one additional question on the, I guess you'd call it the driveway access, it's essentially a bridge. You're building a small bridge, right? So that is a seasonal stream, if I remember correctly. So obviously it has to accommodate that. Are you also building in, the little critter paths that people are building in now to allow for, turtles and such that need to get somewhere without getting crushed?
Yeah, so we, what we decided to do there is that's a very low profile culvert and not to raise the grade. so that the critters can't always pass and repass. If that was a roadway and I had to be above the 100-year floodplain of that stream, I would have brought that road up, and then I would have had to put critter crossings as well as a culvert. Because it's just pedestrian and it can flood during nominal events, we kept it low, and in fact, that's why there's no critter crossing there. We don't expect them to not be able to pass and repass because there's really no change.
Well, it's not so much about, it's for them to be able to pass with safety.
Right.
Both sides.
Right.
So if there's a crossing on the surface that's not safe versus crossing through a channel.
Yeah, well, because it's a pedestrian crossing, it's not a vehicular crossing.
Oh,
That's right,
It's called a driveway.
Yeah, it's an access drive internally, it's just going to be for our employees to be able to walk. It will be allowable if fire wanted to get through there.
Oh, okay.
But in terms of the fencing and everything there, in terms of internal truck turnaround or anything, I presume we will conventionally go out onto Central Street and come back in.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's not even for
Yeah.
regular automobiles? It's
No,
not-
I don't think DEM would have allowed it.
Okay.
It would have just been, it would have been too much in terms of, there's not a real need.
Okay, great.
With materials moving from the new structure to the existing, as you said, as you shred it and sort through it, and then you go for testing, will that be transported via a fork truck, via a UTV? What's going to be the transport method to get it from building to building?
Yeah, we won't be allowed to put the fork trucks on Central Street or any type of UTV, so anything that would pass between the two
No, I was
buildings.
referencing what you're calling a pedestrian walkway will be for
I don't believe
light
so.
equipment.
I don't believe we would use that for, correct me if I'm wrong, Craig.
Would we be allowed to do a forklift transport?
Well, that's what the
That's what I'm
question
asking.
is. That's what the question is.
Well, I'm asking you in the design, I think.
In the design, yeah.